So we could do that. You guys ready to do the pledge real quick and we'll get on?
Sure, go.
Yes.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of
the United States of
America
and
and
to
to
the
the
republic
for which it stands,
for which it stands,
one nation under God,
nation under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
liberty
and
and
justice for all.
for all.
Awesome. Great stuff, guys. Okay. So the club meeting, the general meeting is officially started. For those of you that are just rolling in, we did just complete the first board of director meeting for the club for 2022. We had a full house. We had every officer and every director on hand and some extras. So it went really well. We'll give you a quick recap of what we talked about. After we do our recap of what we discussed at the board of director meeting, then we are going to go around the board, and if we have any committee members, committee chairs, any committee chairs, that looks great, Brian. I love the 3D glasses. Yeah, that's awesome. So if we have any committee chairs that are present with us this evening, we will touch base with the committee chairs and see if they have any news for us. And after that, what we'll do is we will move to a presentation this evening. We have our own Art Arnson, who is going to give us a nice presentation this evening. After our presentation, we will then open up the meeting to just general discussion and talk about whatever we got to talk about, chew on whatever we got to chew on. And it'll be pretty much done after that. You know, everybody can hang out or disappear or whatever they want to do. So if that sounds like a good plan, I'll go ahead and initiate it unless somebody has something they need to interrupt and just say real quick before I go down that agenda. Is there any? And keep in mind, you can bite your tongue till we get to after the presentation. We're going to be here afterward unless there's some sort of, I wouldn't categorize it emergency, but pressing item that you feel you need to get out of the way real quick. Is there anybody's got anything super pressing they got to say? Looks good. Okay, so let's go and see if we have any committee chairs here that can just kind of update us on what's going on within their committee. So any committee chairs?
Okay, well, I'll just start then. One of the things that we're doing at every...
Oh, wait, Don. Wait. I screwed up. First thing we're going to talk about is what we talked about at the board of director meeting. My bad.
Never mind.
So go ahead, Brian.
What's
You have
happening?
something? No?
No, I just said never mind.
Yeah, never mind. Sorry. Let's get this out of the way first. So we had our board of director meeting. We discussed a handful of things. There weren't any votes that needed to get done. We didn't vote on anything. One thing we did discuss is, speaking of voting, we changed our constitution and bylaws a couple of years ago, and we changed it because the revision before the one that we changed was pretty old, and it really wasn't in line with how the club was operating today. So we decided let's revise it and make the constitution, the bylaws more in line with the way we actually operate today, so that we're not violating them every single club meeting and every single year. So we did that. But one thing the past couple of years that I noticed is where we're not really in compliance or it's just not going the way that it says we're supposed to do it in the bylaws is our voting in our officers and directors every year. So we're talking about changing that up a little bit. We're going to put something together and maybe we have a change, in a couple of months, few months, but basically getting our officers and directors voted in each year has become more of a volunteer thing. But we recognized at the board of directors meeting, we still have to give the members of the ability to vote and accept things. And there's a couple little nuances we have to do there. So we're going to be making a change more than likely to the way that we handle our elections every year. Not to the way, we're not going to make a change to the way we're actually doing it per se. We're just going to more or less change the bylaws to match what we're doing is essentially what we're going to do. So we talked about that. We discussed also field day, which Don will get into here shortly. So I'll just leave that one alone, Don. I'll let you talk about that when you come up. So we talked about some of those matters. Don will bring that up. We also talked about winter field day. Jason will bring that up, and we'll let him talk about that. And then we also talked about the net control, the preamble, and the scripting that we use, making an adjustment there. Stephen brought that up, and he has some really good suggestions on when it's time to bring on visitors, on a better way to regulate the visitors and to better moderate them coming in so they're not walking on top of each other, because we've noticed that sometimes people are trying to come in digitally through Echolink or whatever the case may be, and there's that delay, so they can't necessarily get in because the guys that are on RF are just squashing on top of them. So we're going to be making some changes. So if you're a net control operator, keep your eye out. We're probably going to be making some adjustments to that pretty quickly, and just organizing better the way that it's handled at the end of the net. So that's pretty much all we discussed, right? Except we, went over how to partition a hard drive that's got Linux on it. I don't think that really matters, but well, it matters to Mike, but not to the meeting. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it, right, guys? Did I pretty much get it covered? Guys, did I? Yeah. Okay.
Is that
Okay.
sarcasm?
A little bit. So, all right. So that's what we discussed. Before I move on, any input on that from anybody? Any questions or anything? Are we good? Good there? Okay. Looks like we're good. So now we will go to committee chairs, and we'll go to Don, and then we'll go to Jason. And then if anybody else is here who's a committee chair, we'll go there. And if not, then we'll move right to our presentation with Art. So take it away, Don.
Okay, hi guys. We're looking first of all for the Summers Field Day in the end of June to select a location. So I really need your suggestions. We're going to boil it down to one or two, and then have the organization vote on what they prefer. So please feel free to let me know if you have any field day locations that would be reasonably located for our club configuration. A couple of issues that happened last field day that we're going to fix is evidently there was no sink for washing hands that was attached to the porta potty. Somebody was supposed to bring that in and left it out, and we're going to make sure that doesn't happen again. A second thing is there was a problem with the wind, which made it difficult to cook. So we either circle the wagons to keep the wind out, or we pick a location that may have less wind, if that's possible. A third item that came up was food. We had an overabundance of food, more than we needed. So we're going to look at putting an RSVP system in place. So we order the proper amount. Of course, we'll have a little extra for any visitors. But if you do RSVP, please come. We don't want to have any wasted food left over. Then there's going to be a budget. So if there's any special things we need, we're going to have a well planned out budget so we know what items we're going to be spending money for. So that's all on the summer field day. Please just let me know if you have any sites. The only other activity that we do on a regular basis at our meeting is we have presentations. Now, today, Art's going to be presenting a very interesting one. We had the last meeting presentation on tuners, and we don't have a presentation for February. We do have a presentation in March coming on balance. All of us collectively are working on various ham radio projects. So at the very least, we'd like to have a show and tell at the meetings, feel free to share with your fellow members what you're doing. If you want to put together a brief presentation, I would love to have you do that, and I'll schedule it in. So just let me know. And that's all I've got. Any comments from the group?
I got one question. Are we looking for field day locations within just Solano County, or is there a radius we want to maintain so people aren't having to travel very far?
Well, that was something that came up in the past, and the farther out we go, it may make it more difficult, was what was brought up. So a central location would probably be best, but that's something that we need to discuss as an organization. I'm open for any thoughts on that.
You got a suggestion, Kellen?
There was a place last year I was looking at. It was kind of a field, and it was owned by a large ag company. They were asking about certain, insurances, make sure we're all covered. And I ended up getting those questions later on, but it's no longer a good spot to use this year. But I didn't know, I know Cowboy Camp would come up at some point in time, but that's all the way in Colusa County. And I didn't want to, tell my wife and kids, hey, if you want to come visit me for, an afternoon, that they got to drive, an hour and a half all the way up to Clear Lake, essentially, to say hello. So if it's just a Solano County thing, then I think that would work out for most of the club members that are trying to do local stuff as opposed to do long travel bits. That's all.
Cool.
Okay. So in terms of a commute, what do you think the maximum commute should be?
I mean, personally, I'd like it to stay as tight as we can. I don't want to go too terribly far.
Okay.
I mean, that's just me, but the club can decide. If there's a kick butt location that's just like, got lots of shade trees and tiki bar,
power poles.
Power, yeah. Then that's certainly consideration. But
I know a place out in North Carolina.
there you go.
And I know a couple of places up in Union Valley Reservoir area that would fit that bill.
We got Art Miller here. Yeah, how's it going, Art? Man, you good, man?
Yeah.
All right. Coming in
Hey,
from
Art's on 5 acres.
It's going good.
in
It
Tennessee.
took
Are
me
you
a
in-
little while to get logged on, but
where are
what's
you?
going on?
Are you in Tennessee?
Affirmative.
Nice. Good to have you. All right,
I've got 5 acres there that would work real good, but it's only a 3-day ride.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're hauling ass, it's a 3-day ride. Yeah. So, hey, let's go to Jason. Jason, tell us whatever you got cooking, Jason. What's going on with ARRL and our area and Winter Field Day and blah, 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 blah.
Oh, well, I wasn't necessarily prepared to talk about ARRL, but things with the league is going good. The new section manager is constantly trying to grow East Bay as we're in, and there's a lot of clubs. But I think one of the biggest, restrictions is, of course, the COVID. He's wanting to visit with clubs and their meetings and kind of also bring into a mentoring program. So in other words, we're looking to leverage other people within our East Bay section to bring into our meetings and presentations and that kind of thing. So that's fairly exciting because, we're here in the Vaca Valley Radio Club, but yet we're connected to East Bay, which, I think it's about 9 different clubs in our area. And so those are the kind of things that is being worked on there. And then as far as Winter Field Day, so that is the end of this month, January 29th. It's a Saturday. It's going to pretty much it's a 24-hour operation, but we're just going to make it a day trip. And we're heading up to Mount Vaca. So it's, as long as it hasn't rained the day before, a car could make it. Preferably, an SUV or a truck, something like that. The road gets a little steep at times, and then you've got mixed gravel and some dirt. And that's why the caution, if it's raining a whole lot, it will be muddy. If it's actively raining, we will self-assess the morning of. And, I'm thinking communicating via email as we get close. And I will send out an email with some of this information, so you don't got to try to remember it. But if you want to drive up there together, we're going to meet at Journey's Coffee or Donut Queen there by Round Table Pizza, if you guys are familiar with that intersection, but I'll put an address. About 9 o'clock, 9 a.m., and then we're going to drive up the mountain together. But if you want to meet us up there, you either go up Mix Canyon or Gates Canyon, and you're going to look for this square building. It's really hard to miss because it is the only building that looks like that up there. Does anyone have any questions about Winter Field Day?
I've got a quick question.
Yeah.
Is anybody bringing generators, or are we going to be using the power off the tower?
So typically we use batteries, but in this case we do have access to the power of the tower. So we will
power.
We will be able to plug in, although I don't know if we're going to do a pre-trip to inspect, because unfortunately it's being constantly vandalized. So we could go up there and have an issue with power. So that said, I would bring up somewhat prepared, at least one battery to use your radio. And, the idea of this is going to be, everyone is just going to be kind of responsible for their own station, or for that matter, if you just want to take a trip up, visit, operate someone else's radio, we're definitely going to have that advantage. And then we're all going to be using our own individual call sign. We're not going to use a combined call sign. It keeps it a little bit easier as far as, logging all the contacts and all of that up there. Plus, if you want to go home and continue to make contacts, you can, because you started something, you can go home and do it. And so we're just kind of trying to be as flexible as we can.
The reason I asked about the generator, with the fact that we do have electricity up there, is because they would then not consider you being operating outdoors because you're connected to the commercial power main.
Right. And then the idea is, and I'll kind of break it down the morning of, or I encourage everyone to, just Google Winter Field Day. They have a website, they have a rule book. But we're going to be all operating with our individual call signs, we can class ourselves however we want. So if some people want to run off batteries and solar, cool. Some people want to use the electricity, that's fine as well. It just changes your class there. And generators also they can be very noisy on RF. So, sometimes generators are not your friend. And one thing I can say about that location is it does very well for how much RF noise is up there on both high band and low band. Not a lot of intermod on the high band. Now, unless someone wants to volunteer to be a cook, I don't know if we're going to do a grill hot dog hamburger thing, just because that's going to take away, couple hours, right? Set up, tear down, clear, clean up, get the stuff. So as of right now, I think we might just defend for ourselves. Everyone just grab a sandwich, some drinks, definitely a chair, probably a table. We're going to be sitting around the tower. We can go in the tower, but what happens is you get one person in the tower. There's 2 floors. You get one person in the tower, and it's a huge echo box. So there's no way 2 people could be in that tower room on phone. Now, maybe if someone was on CW and someone was on phone, that would work out. You can operate from the top of the tower. That's fine. You just got to carry your stuff up there. But it could be windy. Could be windy, could be cold. Sometimes it's nice to put yourself right against your car or the tower. And that's another thing I will say as well. You can bring up as much as you want, including a hang glider, because they jump off that spot, because you'll be able to park your car right there, right at the tower. So we'll be able to unload, unless we get 20 plus people, but I don't think it'll be that many before it becomes an issue of parking.
Cool.
Yep. So that's Winter Field Day, and that's Saturday. Like I said, 9 o'clock at Journey's Coffee, or just take a stroll. Take a stroll up Blue what is it called? Blue Ridge Road. If you want, you could even go take a look before the 29th of January. You could drive up Mix Canyon, come down Gates Canyon, or whatever you'd like. You know, it is kind of fun to explore up there. And the top of that road is public property. There's some signs that say private property, but the ridge road itself, as long as you don't try to drive into someone's tower site or yard, that's all public access. And better get that.
Who is that?
I don't
Is that
know.
you?
That's my wife's. It'll cut off in a second.
So yeah, and please, if you're just a technician, come on up and we'll get you an HF. A lot of us will be playing HF. It's also a fantastic spot for an HT, or for that matter, just what's mounted in your car already. You know, when you're on top of that tower, you can see the Golden Gate Bridge and you can see the snow caps on the Sierras.
Wow. Pretty chilly up there, isn't it?
It can be. It can be windier than Vacaville. And I've also seen it where it's windier in Vacaville and less windy there.
Huh.
So definitely be prepared to be cold. And I'm really, fingers crossed, it's dry.
Is there room to put up antennas?
Lots of room. So much room, I think we'll talk Kellen into putting up his 160-meter dipole.
Wow.
We'll just hang it from the top, 80 feet at the apex, and then we'll just stretch those long legs down to the ground.
There you go.
But I'll be putting up the hex beam. A lot of people have different variations. So at the very least, come say hi. If you don't plan to operate nothing, fine. Come on up. Take some pictures. It's really pretty up there.
Cool. Awesome. Winterfield Day. Good stuff.
Did they fix the other road? Not Mixed Canyon, but the other one? I know it was gravel for a minute, so I wouldn't recommend automobiles traveling that route. I would stay more toward Mixed Canyon, where it's mostly paved.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kellen. If you're in a car, yeah, you definitely want to come up Mix. And Mix.
Yeah, Gates is pretty hairy.
Yeah, and Mix Road, and please look this up, right? Mix Canyon Road, Gates Canyon Road, Mount Vaca. You'll drive right past our repeater, and you can either give it a thumbs up or you can flip it off, whatever you like.
All right. Speaking
I would recommend Mixed Canyon Road too. I drive a tiny car, and that is the way to go.
All right. Good stuff. Hey, so Jason, I don't see BXP here. So, and you're part of or associated to the repeater committee. Any news for us on repeater stuff? Anything at all? Then if not, it's cool. Just checking.
No, I don't have any update other than the tower is still a future possibility.
Okay.
The owner is now in contact with a second commercial client, and that will be the big moment. If he can get funds from a commercial client, we can start working on resecuring the building.
Cool.
Yep. And also, I should note, if you want to bring your family, please do, but just be aware there are as many as Derek or the donkey calls them. There are as many pickles on the wall. So if you have young ones, just if you go in the building, be aware it's a little rated R. And I think it has
it's pretty colorful.
Yeah, I think there's a swastika, but it's drawn backwards. So someone's got dyslexia. I don't know. I don't know.
All right. Good enough. Thank you, Jason.
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins, Bob Hawkins. Any word from your committee? Any news for us?
Hey, how's everybody doing? No, everybody's gearing back up. The Solano Cart's having their annual training February 5th. ACS, we're still meeting via Zoom. Our first meeting of the year is this coming Monday. And that's about it.
Okay, good enough. Any questions for Mr. Hawkins, anyone? All right. Any other committee chairs here tonight?
Hey, Frank, one other thing I forgot to mention. I've got the okay to put in a radio station at the Green Valley Middle School. And so we'll be working on that in mid-February. I'm going to be meeting with they're going to write a work order. I'm going to meet with the maintenance guys because obviously we're not allowed to climb all over the building. So they're going to put up the antennas and stuff. So if anybody is interested in participating in that project, right now we got Mike and Chris are joining me on that project. But if anybody else is interested, you're welcome to participate. It's going to be a great project.
What day was that?
Well, we haven't set the exact date for meeting with them. I'm coming back from Quartzsite and all that going on, but it's going to be mid-February.
And what kind of station are you guys putting in?
It'll be HF and VHF UHF. So we'll put up probably a DXCC. I have a DXCC antenna. We're going to donate to them. And this was equipment that I got from the estate of Bob Hewitt. And I've got the rigs and power supply here. So I've been holding it to try to find a school to install it. And I finally found one.
You know, Don, I've got stuff too. I've got, if the school could use it, I've got a hefty power supply that I'm not using. I've got a 2 meter 440 radio, a smaller power supply that'll run that. I got the Kenwood HF 570D that I'd happily donate. Huh?
Is it a Sweet Galaxy?
That's right. Yeah, you saw that. Yeah, if we want 11 meter, I do have a nice Galaxy 11 meter radio. But yeah, so just keep me in mind on. I do have stuff that I need to clear out of here, and it's just not going to get used. And if I can donate it, to the school or something, I'd rather do that than just try to.
Well, I'm looking at Green Valley Middle School to be the first one. I gave presentations prior to COVID. It's 3 schools. Green Valley Middle School, was it BK Wilson or whatever it is over in Rancho Solano?
B. Gal Wilson.
B. Gal Wilson, yeah. And I gave one over at Holy Spirit. So they were all interested, and maybe after COVID settles, they see what we're doing with Green Valley, some of the others. And I'd like to get some, interactivity with the schools and clubs, ham radio activity, some competition, and so they can learn and have fun. But
cool.
That's enough for now. And I'm just putting it out there. Let me know if you want to participate. I can use all the help I can get. And thank you, Frank, for donating the equipment. I made a note of all that.
Yeah, I've got it. It's ready to roll. So
okay, cool.
All right. Anybody else got anything we want to touch on real fast before we bring Art up with his presentation? All right. Well, Art, looks like you are good to go. Let me just make you a co-host. I'll make you a co-host. So you should get some sort of something or other. I'm going to make you the spotlight for everybody.
Oh, boy.
So, yep, we can literally see everything in your room right now.
Oh, brother. And you can see my balding hair.
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't done this in a long time, so let's see if I can get it up correctly.
That could be taken greatly out of context, but we'll go ahead and
see how I can share the screen. Okay, so I guess I go there first.
Yes.
Okay, and now I want to go to...
You click on the screen, and then you push the little blue button in the lower right-hand corner to tell it to go.
There, okay.
There you go.
Are you seeing that?
Yeah, we are. You're in, dude. You got it going.
Because I can't tell, so you're going to have to tell me if you can't see something.
It looks good.
So you're seeing the side here too, or just the main screen?
We are seeing the side as well.
That's okay.
You'd have to push and that's fine with us. Yeah, we're all good.
Yep. I'll kill that a little bit here. Yeah, it doesn't want to die. Oh, there it did. Okay, so at any rate, I'm going to start you off there. Glad to see you all came now for your COVID test, since we're talking about COVID tests. And here we go. This is your home COVID test. And this is a nice, enjoyable little piece of humor. Open a can of beer and try to smell it. If you can smell the beer, drink it to see if you can taste it. If you can taste it and smell it, that means, and that confirms, you do not have COVID.
Excellent. Thank you for that. That's very good.
How do I get this to come down? Come on now.
Just
Hit page down.
click one of your arrows on your keyboard.
Oh, okay.
Right, left, top, down, like the down. There you go.
Okay. Here we go. Last night I did this test 19 times and all were negative. Tonight I'm going to do this test over again because this morning I woke up with a headache and feeling like I was coming down with something. And I'm so nervous. I successfully made that test. No problem. Negative all the way. And I figured that was good for an icebreaker. Okay, let's talk about the correct wiring size and why, or possibly damage your rig. Now, we've had a little experience with this with one of our other club members. His rig kept killing or dying every time he started to transmit. So every time he started to transmit, the rig shut down. Well, we started looking for reasons. And we started finding out, and we asked a lot of questions, and are you getting correct voltage and the amperage to the radio? Well, how do you find it out? First of all, go back to your radio and check the specifications. Check the limitations. Number two, check the gauge of the wire feeding the radio and the distance between the source and the radio, and that turned out to be a major issue. Number three, the longer the distance, the more critical the wire size. And that's no joke. I just got through, and you don't have to raise your hands or anything, but I'm sure many of you have RV trailers. Well, I just finished doing my RV trailer for my ham rig, and I had to do some major changes. I have another thing for that. That's not on this one. Okay, here's a chart in wire size and gauge and amperage load. Now, this is for a 3% loss on your either your amperage or your voltage. Now I have two underlined here. I have a number 10 underlined because that seems to be a common one that everybody uses. And the common distance that was chosen was 25 feet and how much you could actually get out of that wire without any loss. So a 10 gauge wire will only carry 10 amps 25 feet without a loss, which a lot of people don't realize. They think it's going to do 30 amps without a loss. That's not true. It may be true with AC, but not so much with DC. The other one is what I ended up using. I ended up using a number 4 gauge wire because I have 25 feet to go from the front of my batteries on my trailer to where my rig was. And as you can see, a number 4, it will handle 40 to 50 amps, 25 feet with a less than 3% loss. And that was a key to solving some of the problems. So we'll go down to the next one here. This is a 2% voltage drop. And this is from Windy Nation. And this is the people that puts in solar systems on RVs. And the way you read this is that the top of the thing gives you the average gauge. So you got 14, 12, 10, 8, 6, and 4. And there's the carrying capacity that they say they're good for. However, if you look at the next line down, it says number of feet one way for a pair of wires. Well, I want 20 amps minimum because that's what my radio uses. So I come down the left-hand side to 20, and then I start going across. And lo and behold, for a 10 gauge wire, 20 amps with less than 2% loss, I can only go 5.5 feet. Now, if I use one wire, I can double that. So I can go 11 feet. And I've checked this out more than once, and it comes back the same every time. Okay, here is another thing I found, and this is an engineering toolbox. And this is 12 volt DC, and this is for a maximum voltage drop of less than 3%. And it gives you the maximum amperage on the left-hand side and the color code for the different wires and the cable length on the right-hand side. Now, as I look at this, I wanted to have at least 20 amps, and I had to go 25 feet. Well, if I only go 15 feet, then I can use a number 10, because at 25 on the screen there, at 15 feet, which is the bottom and the x-axis, you go straight up and you get 20 amps, and lo and behold, it's orange, and that's 10 gauge wire. So it's good. I also wanted to run some other stuff. So I needed to have about 50 amps, 40 to 50 amps that I could have at a power distribution center to run not only my radios, but anything else I had attached to it that I needed, like a small portable refrigerator and a few other things. So I went over to 25 feet, which is roughly halfway between 20 and 30. And then I went straight up until I hit 30 amps. And lo and behold, that's number 6 wire. That isn't going to do it. So I went straight up till I hit 50. And that is number 4 gauge wire. And we're not talking thick wire here. I'm talking welding cable, very thin strand wire. And that's what I did. I went online, I found it on Amazon, and I bought number 4 strand. And it has like 500 or 265, something like that, individual strands. Makes it very flexible, outstanding to bend around things. Just works great. Okay, so now I know what I need. And so then I started doing some work. I made myself a little drawing so that I understood where I had to go. Now I installed a separate battery underneath the seat in my RV so that the distance between my power source and my radio was only going to be like 6 feet. So I could actually use a 10 gauge wire. But the wire to the first battery, which is up front, which is a 200 amp hour lithium iron battery, I connected a number 4 to, and I took it all the way back to the battery underneath the seat. So, and that's a lithium ion, also 100 amp hour. And so now I have 300 amp hours, and it recharges very nicely with that number 4. Now you wonder, where's the ground cable? Well, the ground cable is only 3 foot long because I grounded right to the frame. And since I grounded right to the frame and I used number 4 wire for that, I really don't have much of a loss at all because the frame is not resistant. It carries anything you want because it's big enough. It carries big enough load. So it's not a problem. Okay, since I had that measured out, I got 25 feet. And then I started looking at my radios. And this is really what started getting me going. For 50 watts of power, I need 13 amps. This is for my 2-meter 440 rig. And based on using a 12 gauge wire, I could only get 4.5 feet away. 10 gauge wire, I could get about 7 to 11 feet away. So I just went all the way down and I went to number 4 wire, and then I'm using a 10 gauge amp or 10 gauge wire for the last 3 feet, 3 to 4 feet from that last battery to the rig. And I'm actually not using 10, I went to 8 gauge wire. So I have plenty of, not leverage, but available carrying capacity. Okay, now the thing you notice about some of these ratings is they don't discuss whether it's AC or DC, and it does make a difference. Because at 115 to 120 volts, 10% or 5% isn't going to make that much difference. But when you're talking 12 volts, it does make a significant difference. And here I'm looking at DC only, and I have to deliver 13.8 volts at a specified amperage. So the specifications were 13 amps, at 13.8 volts, and they say plus or minus 15%, which I just sort of look at and just sort of shudder, because that's a heck of a loss or a heck of a gain. So I did the math, and you can see I can either have 14.95 amps max or 11.5 amps low bulb. So I did the work again and settled down. And then I went back to this again, and I looked at this, and you notice this is for a pair of wires, not a single wire. So I can double the distance if I only use a single wire. The ground is only 3 feet, and that's to the frame. So I looked down what I need. Okay, I needed 13 point something amps. So if I look at 15 amps and I go over and I pick up a number, I said 12 wire, so it goes 7 feet. I can go 14 feet if I need 10 amps, but I don't need 10. I need 15 because I need 13.9 to run the radio. So I can only go 4.5 if it's a double. But since I'm only using one wire, I can double that. So I can go 9 feet. That doesn't get me anywhere near 25 feet. So I had to go down further until I could finally get to 25 feet. And it looks like I have to go all the way over here to a number 4 wire to get 22 feet and carry 20 amps. And again, I looked at my voltage drop, allowed to have 15%, so I could go to 15 to 11 volts. But again, I have to be very careful because I don't want to run minimal, because you can damage the equipment that way. So I went back to my chart to make sure it would look good, and okay, it looks good. I can get 22.5 feet, stretch it a little bit. I only need 13. So, well, actually with 4 wire, I can get 30 feet. So yeah, I can do it, no problem with number 4, and that's what I used. Okay, my ICOM, I always also use this HF. My ICOM, I need 21 amps for that, 13.8 volts. And we've already done the voltage before, so we're only looking at the amps this time. So I've got 23 and 18. And then if I go back and look at my chart again, 23 amps, max 18. So 20 I can get away with. And if I want 20 amps, I can go all the way over here. And if I use number 4 wire, I'm good again, not a problem. See, because I'm not using double length, I'm using single length. So I'm good to go, not a problem at all. And we go back over to this again, engineering toolbox. And I love this one. I have, the bottom is the same thing as the top, only the bottom's in meters, in case you like metrics. So again, I go. And I'm looking for 20 some odd amps, and I come over 25 feet and I go up and I hit that purple line, and that's a number 8 wire. So I guess I could actually trim it down, use a number 8, but I wanted more than that because I have other things I'm connecting to that distribution box. So I went up to 50 amps, which means again I have to use a number 4 wire. And this is a single line with a voltage drop of less than 3%. So I'm getting full voltage. I'm getting all my amperage. I don't have to worry about anything dimming out or shutting down. And it's working just fine. So what's the final conclusion? Well, from experience, personal experience, I am finding out that I want to use the largest wire size I can get to get the full load of amperage and voltage, so that your rig does not have any starvation of energy that might either shut it off or damage it. And it will damage if it runs low. It'll heat up. Just like a motor, if you run AC motor that is supposed to be on 220 on 110, and it does start up, it's going to heat up something terrific. And even if you run 120 motor on 100 volts, it will heat up also. So if it isn't the right amperage, isn't the right voltage, you can get heat, and heat is definitely your enemy. And with the 12 volt system, I go back to the Pi physics, pi, power equals amperage times voltage. And if one goes up, the other has to go down. So if your amperage goes up, then your voltage is going to go down. It's inverse. So the biggest wire you can carry is the best wire to choose. And that's about the end of it. Any questions?
All right, here. Let me see if I can. Bring us back here. Maybe you could stop your screen share.
No problem. We just flip that there. There we go.
There we go. And then I can remove the spotlight. Swing. I did that.
Oh, shucks.
And yeah. Well, cool.
Okay, I do have a question.
Go.
All right. I know I've seen, like in Walmart, they sell these 2-gauge amplifier cables. Could you combine 2 of those together to get higher power for each leg?
Yes, but from what I understand, that's not recommended. And I'm not going to go into the reason why it's not recommended because I really don't know. I do know some people who double up on their cables from one end to the other. I guess you could say that leaves 2 opportunities if something shorts out that you could have a big problem. I preferably would rather use a bigger wire and use welding cable because welding cable, you can put DC 200 amps through a number 1 welding cable. I know I used to do it. And it's flexible. You can bend it any which way you want to. You can make circles out of it, less than about 8-inch diameters. And it's fine strand. And hey, as far as I'm concerned, I'll definitely take a welding cable over anything else. Yes, I know it's a little more expensive, but ladies and gentlemen, I only intend to do this once. I don't intend to rewire again. I rewired because the first time I did this with the help of Bruce, I only put 8-gauge wire underneath my RV. And after I got through with this little experiment doing this because of another one of our members was having problems with his radio shutting down every time he fired it up, we found out why, and the reason why was there's a voltage drop. And so that made me start thinking, and that's why I started digging, and lo and behold, I want the biggest wire I can get. And if you go to about a number 2 fine strand copper, that'll give you a lot of voltage for a long distance. And it's flexible.
And like I said, I know I've seen them sold at Walmart as the amplifier cables for power amps for radios and stuff.
Speakers mainly. They're usually audio amperage speakers, not RF.
I would like to mention that when looking into DC conductors, make sure you're looking at total length of run. On an AC circuit, you don't have to look at a total length of run, but when you calculate your resistance for the circular mills of what you need for your wire size, you have to calculate total length from battery to object and then back to battery. It's not just a 25 feet. It's actually going to be a 50 feet for there and back.
Well, that's
a misconception.
That's if you use 2 wires. I'm using the frame of the trailer as the other half, and virtually there's not much resistance on that because it's such a big area, so it'll carry anything. So I'm really looking at the length of one 25-foot 4-gauge or 2-gauge or whatever gauge you want to use, because the other half, the grounding half, isn't going back the same way.
Yeah, you just got to make sure that your grounding cable from the battery to the frame is appropriately sized for your blow-all fuse, if you will.
Yeah, and I'm also running fuses. Now, this is another thing that I do. I have a fuse from the battery to the cable, and that's a 50 amp fuse. And then at the other end where my radio is, that has its own fuse for 30 amps or 25 amps. And so each section is fused totally separate. So I have about, and these are mechanical breakers, so I can re-trip them if they do trip. And so I have like 4 breakers in between the front radio, the front battery, the secondary battery, and my radio. There's 3 breakers right there, because I have one at the front where it gets connected to the 200 amp hour battery. I have another breaker at the 100 amp hour battery, and I have a third breaker for the radio. Yeah, you definitely want to breaker them and fuse them as much as possible.
Make sure those fuses are pretty accessible too.
Definitely. And for any of you guys that are looking at putting solar power on your rigs, I've already done that thanks to Bruce and a couple other people that helped me. And I have about 4 breakers on that setup as well, just to make sure that there's no chance if I want to cut something off so that it is totally separated, I can cut it off so it's totally separated and no power.
Right.
Thank you, Kellen, for the extra support there on the length of the wire. That is very important.
There's also another actual formula that you can use if you don't have a chart. You can do 10.75 ohms times the amperage that you want, times the length, and then you divide it by the percentage voltage drop. And the voltage drop is going to be determined by your continuous load or non-continuous, depending on what the actual item is. Because at times you may only want like a 5% or even down to a 2%, given the amount of time that it's going to run. So once you do that calculation, that equals your cable circular mills. And then you can look on like a NEC table and look at the circular mills of an actual wire conductor, and that'll spit out the actual size you need for that amperage that you need.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than what I got into. But yes, they had that formula there too. But I just looked at the engineering. That was one of the ones that I looked at, the engineering toolbox amperage versus wire size and distance. And that covers pretty much, I would say, 90% of everything you need to really look at. And it worked fine for me. I mean, I don't have any voltage drop from one end to the other. Bruce came over and checked it out with his meters, and it was right on the money. Number 4 did it for me, so I'm not going to say it would be the total solution. I'm just saying in my case, it worked out just fine. And none of my grounds are any longer than about 3 feet. So, and they go straight to the frame. So from the 200 amp hour battery to the frame is less than 3 feet. I think it's about 18 inches. And from the inside of my channel right above my axles to where the radio is about 3 feet, and that's working perfectly.
You can also look up ABYC. They're the electrical certification for DC circuits for boats and marine applications. If you look up ABYC wire calculator, it'll actually spit up a bunch of information. You just put in your length and wire, or not wire size, but your load and how long, and it'll spit out exactly what you want to if you don't have a chart. So
cool
stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks, Art.
No problem.
Anybody got anything else for Art? No? Anybody got anything else at all for the meeting?
Yeah, I see Bruce's hands up.
He's got a thumb up.
I was just saying to Frank and Art that I enjoyed his presentation, giving him a thumbs up.
Excellent. Awesome. All right. Well, I'm good to take off if you guys are good to take off. Good to go?
Good to go.
Sounds good to me.
All right, Art, thanks again, man. Appreciate it. That was really cool.
problem.
All right. And great, guys. Well, we'll see you on the net. Adios. See you guys.
Adios.